This is the story of a very beautiful kingdom named Lumbria, where all the people were very happy and loved their king and queen dearly. We are introduced to Princess Elian, the only daughter of the king and queen, who is seen flying around with her friends on a flying creature. Just then one of her friends says, "You're about to turn 15 soon, which means there will be a grand celebration in the palace." To this, Elian responds while refusing, "No, I'm grown up now. That's why I want to spend all my time with my parents." After this, all of Elian's friends return to their homes, and Elian also heads back to the palace. As she returns, a woman named Nazra approaches her and says, "Everything is going out of control. You must go to the king and queen immediately." As soon as Elian enters the palace, her favorite pet Flick runs up to her. Then she notices that someone has vandalized the inside of the palace. But surprisingly, she doesn't seem too shocked and begins to narrate her story. It happened about a year ago when the king and queen went hunting. Due to some unknown reason, they both turned into terrifying monsters. If the people had found out about this, it would have caused a huge problem. That's why, ever since then, no one has been allowed to meet the king and queen. Later, a general of the kingdom tries to visit the king and queen for some official work. But Minister Balinar and Nazra make up some excuses and send her back. However, the general is very stubborn and while leaving she says, "I will come back again." One day or another, the truth about the king and queen was bound to come out. This thought deeply troubled Elian. Just then a messenger arrived and handed her a letter. In fact, Elian had sought help from some wizards to find a cure for her parents. As soon as she opened the letter, two large shadows emerged from it. They told her, "To treat your parents we will need to examine them first. That's why we'll be arriving in the kingdom soon." Meanwhile, Nazra and Balinar were discussing among themselves. The time has come to tell everyone that the king and queen are no more. Elian will now take over the responsibilities of the kingdom. The people will surely be sad, but they love Elian deeply. If she becomes queen, everything will gradually return to normal. At that moment, Elian arrived and told them about the wizards. Nazra and Balahar were very happy to hear this and said, "If the king and queen can't be cured, then you must take charge of the kingdom." To this, Elian replied, "First, I will do everything I can to cure my parents." The next day, everyone got dressed and waited eagerly for the arrival of the wizards. Suddenly, a small frog came hopping into the palace. From inside the frog, two chubby men appeared. They introduced themselves to Elian, and then she took them to see her parents. Seeing the monstrous form of the king and queen, the wizards were terrified. Not only that, the king and queen didn't seem pleased to see the wizards either. Elian tried to distract her parents by showing them toys and then started talking to the wizards. The wizards told her, "The king and queen are under the curse of the dark forest, which is extremely dangerous. If they are not cured soon, they may never return to human form." As they were talking, the king and queen suddenly appeared and attacked the wizards. Out of fear, the wizards quickly fled, riding on the frog. Elian's entire plan had now failed. Furious, she lashed out at her parents for scaring the wizards away and said some harsh words in anger. Being monsters, making mistakes had become second nature to the king and queen. But because of Elian's scolding, they became upset with her and began to distance themselves from her. Eventually, Elian also came to understand everything. She realized that she shouldn't have spoken to her parents the way she did. Since her birthday wasn't over yet, she took a small piece of cake and went to her mom and dad to apologize. But as always, the king and queen were sitting silently in the same spot, showing no reaction. Elian now started feeling extremely lonely and began remembering the good time she had spent with her parents. The next morning, after waking up, Elian went to check on her parents again, but they were no longer in the palace. This was because the previous day, Elian had forgotten to close the door. Soon, the king and queen appeared before the people. Seeing them, everyone was terrified. When the general heard about the two monsters, she arrived with her soldiers to capture them. Just then, Elian also reached the scene and revealed the truth to everyone, that these two monsters were actually the king and queen. At first, the people didn't believe her. So, a royal assembly was called, where the entire truth was shared from the beginning. This made the people even more afraid. They began wondering, if even our king and queen aren't safe, then how can they protect us? Some even started talking about leaving the kingdom. At this point, Nazra announced that Elian would now be their new queen. The general, thinking about the safety of the people, suggested that the king and queen be sent far away. Nazra and Elian were completely against this decision. But eventually, it was decided that the king and queen would be sent away. Preparations began. Elian was heartbroken. She didn't want to leave her parents in such a condition. Just then she found the locket belonging to the two wizards, the one she had forgotten to take with her in haste. She pressed a button on the locket and was able to see the wizards who were still looking for the locket. Elian spoke to them and asked for help once again. The wizards refused to come to the kingdom but told Elian to bring the king and queen to them instead. The magical locket would guide them to the right path. Now, as the king and queen were being sent away, Elian rushed to the location and pressed a button on the locket. Instantly, the cage holding the king and queen came alive and started moving on its own. Another button press created a magical vehicle for Elian. And just like that, the three of them began their journey together. The general thinks that the monster is running away with Elian, so she tries to capture them with the help of the soldiers. To handle the situation, Elian gives her locket to Flick. With the help of the locket, they continue their journey, overcoming every obstacle that comes their way. Nazra and Balinar also arrive, riding flying creatures alongside the soldiers. They try to convince Elian that nothing can be done now, that the king and queen can never be cured. But Elian refuses to listen. Thinking quickly, Nazra pushes Balinar toward Elian, hoping he can stop her. But when Balinar falls onto the locket, something unexpected happens. The souls of Balinar and Flick get swapped. That means Flick's soul is now in Balinar's body, and Balinar's soul is inside Flick's body. Right after this, the locket teleports all three of them to a mysterious place deep inside the forest, where the two wizards were waiting for them. The wizards begin by examining the king and queen. They tell Elian, "The inner light of your parents has completely faded. There is only one way to restore it, the heart of eternal life. But it can only be found on a special mountain which is not easy to reach. You'll have to pass through the dark forest, where every step is full of danger." Without fear, Elian replies, "I will go. No matter what happens, I will save my parents." The wizards then give Elian a magical orb which will guide her to the mountain. As they continue their journey, they spot a group of guards nearby. At that moment, Balinar, inside Flick's body, begins yelling loudly to attract the guards and get rescued. But Elian quickly stops him, because if the guards see them, she will never be able to save her parents. After that, they all continue forward and pass through a dark cave. Inside the cave, something strange could be seen. The walls glowed with light every time they spoke, as if the cave could hear their words. At first, it all seemed beautiful, but soon an argument broke out between the king and queen over something trivial. The colors from their words turned red, and this red light began to cause real harm. Suddenly, the darkness of the dark forest began to creep in, the same darkness that could turn humans into monsters. Now, Elian was the only human left. The darkness started moving toward her. Seeing this, the king and queen immediately stopped fighting and rushed forward to protect Elian. But the red light surrounding them blocked their path. Just as the darkness reached Elian, the king and queen spoke together in kind and loving words, and those positive words dispelled the red light. Now, Elian was overjoyed to see her parents speaking normally and safely again. The journey continued. But not long after, the king and queen started arguing again. Elian tried to calm them down, saying, "Learn something from what just happened. If we keep fighting like this, we'll land in trouble again." They all decided to stop and rest for a while. Suddenly, the queen remembered Elian's name, a sign that her memory was beginning to return. They resumed their journey. A little further, Elian noticed that Balinar, who was still in Flick's body, was secretly leaving behind clues to help others follow them. Elian told him to stop, knowing that it could put them in danger. As they moved forward, they crossed a sandy desert. Suddenly, a cloud passed over them, and Elian was pulled down into the sand. Everyone realized that they had to stay far away from the cloud if they wanted to stay safe. Then a new argument broke out between the king and queen about which direction to take. Elian noticed that their fighting was once again bringing back the darkness of the dark forest. And not just that, because of Balinar's clues, the general had also tracked them down and reached the area. Everyone hurried forward. The king and queen were still arguing, which began to affect the weather. The skies turned stormy, and the sand began to sink beneath them. They barely managed to survive by holding onto a large rock. Moving ahead, they came across a baby animal stuck and struggling. Elian told her parents, "We should help it." Together, they rescued the little creature, and as soon as they did, the weather cleared up again. Now, only the general was still following them. On Elian's suggestion, the king cleverly uses the sand to distract and mislead the general. After that, they reach a maze-like place. While navigating through it, Elian gets distracted for a moment and becomes separated from her parents. In that area, some hamsters lived who knew all the paths of the maze. Elian and Balinar ask them for help. But first, the hamsters offer their favorite food, something weird and unusual which normal humans can't eat. However, as soon as Balinar tries it, he surprisingly loves the taste. The hamsters accept Balinar wholeheartedly. He even meets their leader, and soon they all have a grand party together. Afterward, the hamsters safely guide Elian and Balinar out of the maze. Once outside, Elian reunites with her parents. They also come across magical creatures, incredibly adorable beings. Seeing Elian playing with their babies makes the king and queen recall all their memories. Now, they only need a small amount of the heart of eternal life to be fully healed. As they continue their journey, they spot a magical mountain in the distance and finally reach a magical lake. But as soon as the king and queen try to step into the lake, the water starts pulling away from them. Then, terrifying visions appear before them, memories of the day they turned into monsters. On that day too, they were arguing, and the darkness of the dark forest took over them. Now they finally realized the truth. The rift in their relationship was the root of the problem. It was destroying not only them but also their family. When Elian sees this, she becomes very angry with her parents, because they were never thinking about her, only about their own fights. Heartbroken and furious, she walks away from them. This time, the darkness begins to consume Elian herself. From the outside, it looks like a massive, violent storm. The king and queen try to reach her to save her, but just then the general steps in and captures them both. He then orders his soldiers to take the two monsters far away. Meanwhile, Balinar, seeing everything unfold, rushes to his hamster friends for help. Soon, the hamster army arrives, captures the general's forces, and rescues the king and queen. When the king and queen speak in front of everyone, their sincerity and remorse convince everyone that they are indeed the real king and queen. They begin apologizing for their mistakes and the pain they've caused. After this, Nazra asks the king and queen about Elian. The queen points toward the storm, indicating where she is. Everyone immediately sets out toward the mountain. By now, the darkness had completely surrounded Elian. Just then, the king and queen come up with an idea. They begin pouring the magical lake water over Elian, without touching it themselves. The water pushes the darkness back slightly. At this moment, the king and queen fully realize their mistakes. They sincerely apologize to Elian. Elian begins to recall her childhood memories with her parents, and because of all these heartfelt moments, her anger finally begins to fade. She runs to her parents and hugs them tightly. At that very moment, the lake starts flowing once again, and the king and queen finally transform back into humans. Everyone witnesses this and rejoices. Flick and Balinar also return to their original bodies, bringing everything back to normal. Then we see a time skip to 1 year later. Elian's life is now filled with happiness and peace. The king and queen live in separate palaces, handling the affairs of the kingdom. But whenever Elian needs them, they are always by her side. This year, Elian celebrates her birthday with grand celebration, and both the wizards also join in the joyous occasion. And with that, the movie comes to an end. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and tell us in the comments what you thought of this story.